made it to Thursday. We actually have football back on the tube tonight, some NFL, Rams, 49ers. We call it Little Friday here. We're optimistic people here at Crain & Company. Appreciate you guys joining us. Got a ton to get to. Bryan Driskell is going to make his return back to the show to talk a little bit of Notre Dame as well. If you know, you know. But first, David, it is official. Bill Belichick is a college football coach.
It is. Sounds like a 5-year deal with North Carolina, about $10 million a year, I think. Can't find the specifics just yet, but that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, and I know he asked for, like $20 million in NIL or a war chest there. I haven't seen the specifics yet regarding his son as well, being a head coach and waiting, something like that. Since this broke, I've had people on social media ask me, do I think he's going to, have success at North Carolina? I think the first thing we have to do, and I said this, early this morning when I went on with Mincy on Barstool, was how do you define success if you're a North Carolina fan? Or if you're just asking me in general, are we talking about winning a national championship? I highly doubt that. Not saying it's impossible, but I don't think it's probable. But at North Carolina, and this is one of the reasons why many people say it's such a great job, because it is a basketball school, if we're going to be honest with ourselves. You win 8-9 games a year there consistently, and you make a run every 3 to 4 years, you go down as a hero at North Carolina. Plus, they can pay you this type of money. So I think it depends on how you define success. And then I will also say I think it's easier now for an NFL guy to go to college because of the way the college game has evolved. Not that they're exactly the same as the NFL, because like we talked about with Rhett Lashley yesterday, there's no everybody's not a free agent at the end of the year in the NFL. There's contracts. But how do you see this move? Do you like it? Do you think it's going to work?
I think it's fascinating. A couple things, first of all, with Bill Belichick specifically. For a long time, we said this guy's probably the greatest NFL coach of all time, right? Not the volume of wins necessarily that someone like Don Shula had, but the 6 Super Bowl wins. Then Tom Brady leaves, gets another Super Bowl. Bill Belichick gets fired from the Patriots. So you would think that, he got fired from his NFL job, couldn't get another NFL job, so he's coming down to the ranks to the college level. That has to be some sort of demotion. That has to be embarrassing. I feel the opposite way about it. I see a guy, now I have more respect for him. This guy loves ball so much that he wants to coach so badly that he's willing to be the head coach at North Carolina. And in terms of winning the national championship, I agree. What you said is true for most of the history of North Carolina football. But now in an era, like you said, where you can put $20 million of NIL money behind a roster, which it sounds like North Carolina is going to do. The transfer portal is pretty much always open. Kids can say, you know what, I would like to go play with Bill Belichick. I'm going to go do it next week. And in a conference in the ACC where we just saw a 3-loss Clemson team is going to make the college football playoff. Put Bill Belichick in a 12-team playoff to win 4 straight games. Go make your halftime adjustments. Who knows, man? Maybe they could win a national championship.
Yeah, and I think it's great for college football.
It's fantastic. How we
feel about college football. Blaine, you see all these documentaries with Bill Belichick. You see these interviews where players are like, we can't believe he was getting on Tom Brady the way that he was, after Tom Brady had made that evolution into, one of, if not the greatest quarterback of all time. How do you think in the era of the transfer portal, when you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds mostly, that Bill Belichick will be able to, keep a roster or cultivate a culture at a college place? Because we know how different that relationship is still, even with as much as the college football game has changed, the NFL as compared to college.
Well, I think Bill Belichick is a great football coach, but I think he's a very easily unlikable guy. The way he acts and the way he talks is just the way Bill Belichick is. And I think, to be honest, I think this is an extremely risky move for Bill Belichick. With years of dominance in the NFL, you're walking into a different college landscape, from recruiting to the transfer portal to all this, to a team that you're going to North Carolina, to where you're going to have to rebuild this team to get it back to where it was, and it could overshadow, if it goes bad early, all the success he had in the NFL. So to Bill, I know you love ball, but at the same time, this is a risky move for Bill Belichick.
Where was North Carolina though? Like what is he building it back in? Having a good runoff year every 1 to 4 years. Again, this goes to my point. I don't think people in North Carolina are expecting to win the national championship every year, and the expectation for the basketball team is a lot different than the football team. That isn't to say that they don't want to, or that they can't, or they wouldn't be, we saw Clemson elevate themselves with Dabo Swinney. Now look at the expectation and the standard at Clemson. I just don't think North Carolina's been to a spot where it's like he's got to rebuild it back to here. If they're making this hire and throwing this type of money, I think it's more to David's point of they're trying to elevate themselves to where the standard can be raised.
Well, his legacy clearly took at least a little bit of a hit the way it ended in New England. It's not like he went out with back-to-back Super Bowls like John Elway or something. So, Blaine, are you saying that the hit that his legacy took at the end in New England, that can kind of be overlooked with time because of all the Super Bowls he still won, but you be mediocre at the college level moving forward, and that's something you can't overcome?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that could tarnish everything you did. I mean, to a certain extent, but it could put kind of a bad shadow of everything you've accomplished in the NFL if you come to North Carolina and just throw a dud for 2 or 3 years.
Can I ask you guys this? What do you think? Tell me what you think it was like in the meeting room when the athletic director, and I have the name here, the North Carolina athletic director is named Bubba Cunningham. Only someone with that name can pull this off. What was it like in the meeting room when they got rid of Mac Brown and they were looking to hire a new football coach when he said, "Bear with me, Bill Belichick"?
Well,
how was that received?
If I was in the room, the first thing I would say was, there's no way.
Sure.
He would say yes. Why would he do that? He's an NFL guy. You know, it's not like Wink Martindale coming to be the coordinator or anything like that. Would Bill Belichick stamp his name on being a college head coach when he's cut his teeth and he's been at the NFL for so long? It's not like Saban, who was an understudy of Belichick, who had been in college for a while, then went back to the NFL, then decided to come back to college. I think it would probably be I would love that. I think that would be awesome. It would make us instantly relevant. But why are you faking me out? Like, why are you just, why not Barack Obama? Or, you know, just if we're just going to say names, Moses, Abraham Lincoln. But the fact that not only did you throw that name out there, you were able to go get that guy. And the structuring, and here's what I find fascinating. Some people, and this is where I want to give Clark Lee credit. So we were like, oh, well, look, he's got a GM. Look, it's Lombardi, whatever his name is. Yeah. Clark Lee got Barton Simmons to be the GM before any of that stuff was cool. So we've already seen kind of this movie before. We just haven't seen it with this main character in Bill Belichick, which is going to be fascinating. So I'm happy for North Carolina. Again, I think it's great for college football. I really, really
Fantastic
do.
for college.
We want to know what y'all think. Make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. Bryan Driskell from Irish Breakdown joins us to discuss Notre Dame's playoff matchup against Indiana. And further, we're going to discuss the coaching carousel because it's moving. Look at Dan Mullen and Rich Rodriguez, who's returning to West Virginia as Scott Frost heads back to UCF. I'm Jake Crain, and it's a Thirsty Thursday here at Crain & Company. Marcus Freeman has brought in a totally different type of athlete to Notre Dame's roster. They aren't just overtly big and okay overall in athleticism. They have guys right now that can go get it. And the team's speed has increased twofold since his tenure began. But the question is still the same. Can they finally beat one of the big dogs when they get to the championship brink? And while Indiana should and will demand their respect, until Notre Dame beats a Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, or even Oregon, the jury will still be out. Brian Kelly won a lot of games. He should have beat the teams that he did. But when it came time and again, the Irish faced a big dog, they would get eaten. I can still see Eddie Lacy running through that defense like the plague, or them almost beating Georgia, but not quite. This is Freeman's first big postseason opportunity. And he could be the one to break them free from this dry spell that they have been on against the college football elite. There have also been some pretty low lows since Freeman took over. They lost to Marshall and Northern Illinois this year. And there haven't been some extreme highs that some have waited on. And all that and the perception of who Notre Dame now is could change if the Irish could make a run in the college football playoff. They are also on the weaker side of the bracket. But as fast as he could rise in the eyes of the Irish faithful, a loss to in-state foe Indiana in their own house could shatter any expectation of Notre Dame entering a new and beautiful Renaissance era. David Cohn, former Michigan quarterback, knows a little bit about playing Notre Dame. My brother, former Western State Colorado wide receiver Blaine Crain. And that's been the perception, David, of Notre Dame. They've beaten a lot of teams that they should. They've lost to a couple teams that they shouldn't, but they haven't been able to get over the hump when it matters the most. We're going to talk about that with Bryan Driskell. Is this the year? Is Marcus Freeman the guy? Is this archetype of team the way that Notre Dame can finally get back to the highest level of glory, not just being one of the rich kids who gets to sit at the table.
Well, the question of is this Notre Dame team championship caliber, I think is a question that I've had and a lot of college football fans around the country have had. And I can hear people screaming saying, no, guys, they lost to Northern Illinois at home. This team can't win a national championship. And I feel that. There's a lot of truth in that. At the same time, I'm just looking at the way they're built. I'm looking at the way they lean on this defense, right? Defense travels. I'm looking at they have a playmaker at quarterback who can make plays with his legs, and actually that's his strongest asset. That'd be something great to have as you're moving forward to try and win 4 in this postseason tournament. And then the third aspect of it is I don't see that perfect juggernaut team that they would have to go up against, man. I don't look at Oregon or Georgia as teams that's just absolutely unbeatable from Notre Dame's standpoint. With that being said, the flip side of that is I wouldn't be surprised at all if Indiana beats them. So where does that leave this Notre Dame team? And that's why I was so glad we were able to get Bryan Driskell for today.
And Blaine, to David's point, and this is what I continue to try and say, yes, when we're talking about Notre Dame having a chance to win a championship this year, we need to focus on Notre Dame. But Notre Dame, you also have to look at the context and the circumstance that we're in. I do not see an Alabama-level team that destroyed Manti Te'o and them like we saw in the national championship this year. So when you look at the teams around them, maybe it's not as much about Notre Dame having the best team that they've had in 30 years, but this may be the most vulnerable field, and where they're located in the bracket, you know, you really couldn't ask for better unless you wanted to trade spots.
That's what I was going to bring up. I think it's more about where they are in the bracket than Notre Dame who, as a football team. You can look at Notre Dame. What are they good at? Running the football, stopping the run. They're going to go as far as Riley Leonard takes them, I believe. But right now, your first matchup is Indiana, a game you are favored in. The next matchup, you would play a Georgia team with a quarterback. We really don't know. Carson Beck, is he going to play? Is it going to be Gunnar Stockton? And then on the other side, probably either going to be Boise State, Penn State, or Boise State, SMU. If Penn State gets there, it's going to be a battle of two teams who can actually win the game that matters. And then you get into the championship, and it's just 4 quarters, and we see who wins that football game. But the thing about Notre Dame, it's just something different about this team with Marcus Freeman and the way they built. I think they don't panic late in games anymore. I don't think they look at it as like, oh, well, here, we're going to find a way to blow this game again. It's a new direction. It's a new feel. It's a new vibe at Notre Dame. And under Marcus Freeman, I think they can play with that, with the speed and the talent and the toughness that he brought to this program as a culture. That's what wins you football games. That's what gets you over the hump.
Yeah, I want to get to the chat in 1 second, then we're going to bring Bryan Driskell on. But another point, I don't think getting to the championship game is good enough for Notre Dame fans.
Even this year?
Even this year, because they've had that before. What's the difference in that with Brian Kelly? Like, really, there's no difference. There's no net positive. We've seen them get there. We've seen them get all the way to dipping their toe in the water, but we have not seen them jump in. Mm-hmm. And until they jump in, I don't think the Notre Dame fans will be able to take a breath and say, you know what? Finally, we are back. We are where we rightfully should be, and we have something that we can look back on our tradition and say, hey, this is a new era. It's a Renaissance era. We are back, and this proves to recruits and people on the outside that Notre Dame can actually do it, because we see this all the time. They talked about Kirby Smart, man. You just can't get past Alabama. Just can't do it. He ends up winning 2 national championships. We look at Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. Just can't beat Ohio State. They start reeling some off. Now we're saying it about Ryan Day on the other side. So Dan Lanning can't win the big game, beats Ohio State this year. We got to see with Oregon still. The jury's still out. But you always haven't until you have.
Yeah, that's interesting. To the Michigan point, I can just say, as someone who did watch Jim Harbaugh in 2021 get over the hump that you're talking about, it's like you finally beat your rival, you finally won the Big Ten, you finally made the college football playoff, and then you go and you get blown out by Georgia. That scenario was so much better than the decade prior, but there was still something missing. It was better, but what we just experienced, the national championship, you can't even hardly compare. And so I do think that there's an element of that with Notre Dame fans. Even this year in the inaugural 12-team playoff, it would be so much better to make the championship and lose than some of the things you've had, but it wouldn't quite be the same. As
Very true. All right, let's get to the chat before we get to Bryan Driskell.
All right, chat, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. If you donates on topic, it will get read. Let's start with Kevin O. I can't say her last name because I'm sure as hell will mess it up. Says Notre Dame without Morrison and Traore on D is concerning. With those two, I believe they could beat anyone in the country.
Well, if there's one side of the ball where I feel like you could afford to have a few hits with the way this team is constructed just from a roster depth standpoint and who Marcus Freeman and who Al Golden, the defensive coordinator, is, it's on defense. Now, you don't want that to happen to any side of the ball. You don't want that to happen to the special teams with the kicker or the punter. But if you had to choose gun to the head defense, is your offense good enough to make up for that to keep you in games with Riley Leonard? If he can throw the ball when the run game isn't available, maybe, down the road, but we got to see against Indiana, who's top 2 in the country against stopping the run.
Let's go to Jay Sum. Says, what on earth has anyone seen from Georgia to think they would smack Notre Dame? So I've watched several of both of their games, and brother, I ain't seeing it.
Well, that goes back to the point I made. I mean, it's the circumstance around them, too. This is not the most elite Georgia team that we have seen. This is not the most elite Ohio State team that we have seen. Now, you can make an argument with Tennessee, this, that, or the other, but there is nobody that I look at, and this includes Oregon, who you got to give them their props. They're 13-0. I don't see a team that I point at and say, oh, my God, they are so much better than everybody else, and it's going to take something a little short of a miracle for somebody to beat them. And sometimes that's the way it works. That's the way it works in college basketball, too. So maybe the circumstance is what can finally get Notre Dame over the hump, not having the most elite team that they've had in 30 years.
Let's go to Ed Kiley. Too often, many fans will judge current teams by what their predecessors did years ago, which is faulty reasoning. Different coaches, different players, etc.
Well, but the standard shouldn't shift, right?
The standard, I think.
And Notre Dame has a proud standard.
And they should keep that. But again, I say this all the time. This is why I'm not a trends guy. Because if you've ever been in it, we can look at it and talk about it and say, man, they haven't won it in a while. You look at Oregon, who's never won a national championship in college football, but they've had a ton of success. But every year is different. Even when you have the same coach, the roster is different. The coaches around you are different. Maybe the facilities are different. The fan sentiment is different. That's why I'm not considering to be like, well, they lost in 2014, so 2024, I don't give them as good of a chance. That makes no sense at all. Those two teams have absolutely nothing to do with one another. So in a way, I agree with you.
Let's go to Nicholas Glasgow. He says, if Notre Dame wins it all, what does that say about them remaining independent? P.S. Blaine, Die Hard, it's a Christmas movie. You don't want to walk down this road with me.
Not yet.
Oh, please no. Please no. What does that say about them staying independent? It validates everything. To me, it's, again, you can't tell me nothing. After we win the Natty, no, the way we did it resulted in us being the best. You can't tell me anything, whether I'm independent, whether I just joined a conference, whatever. You can't tell me anything after winning a Natty.
I criticize these teams who get to schedule their non-conference opponents, and I say, what other level of football do you get to pick who you're going to play? But at least the conference, at least the SEC gets to say, well, here are your conference games. Notre Dame just gets to pick all of them. But I will say, for the most part, they try and keep the same rivalries and the same games. And I love when they play USC. I love when they play Army-Navy. I wish Michigan was still on the schedule. But whatever we're going to next, if it's some Super League, Notre Dame will be involved, and that will be the conference, right?
Yeah, especially if it splits into two. If they have to, they're not going to allow you to stay independent. We got a great conversation with Bryan Driskell from Irish Breakdown. Going to get to that in 1 second, but first, speaking about delicious matchups, matching you up with a meat delivery company that is the best in the country. Well, that's easy because they sponsor us, and their name is Good Ranchers. We all know the holidays are approaching, and with them come precious moments around the table with loved ones, sharing meals, creating lifelong memories. Who ate all the spinach casserole? I didn't get any yet. But let's be honest, finding the perfect holiday meal can be stressful for a lot of people. Grocery store crowds are nuts. We know about the chaos in there. The meat quality, the prices are crazy too. That's where Good Ranchers come in. And they deliver America's finest meat right to your doorstep so you can focus on what really matters this Christmas season. Plus, there's an exclusive holiday offer. When you subscribe to any Good Ranchers box using our special code booster, BOOSTER, you'll get to choose a free gift of chicken breasts, ground beef, bacon, or salmon included in every box for a year, plus $25 off and free express shipping. So visit GoodRanchers.com, use promo code BOOSTER today, and treat yourself and your loved ones to the convenience and quality of American meat. Good Ranchers, American meat delivered. All right, let's get to our interview with Bryan Driskell. He's back. A lot of people say that sequels aren't very good, or at least most of them these days. Well, we got an awesome sequel today. As our friend from Irish Breakdown, Bryan Driskell, is back on Crain & Company. Bryan, what is up, man? It's good to see you again.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys.
Definitely. Well, look, obviously there's a lot going down with Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman, y'all getting in the playoff, bouncing back from that Northern Illinois loss. But first, for the people that don't know, we had you on a while ago after Brian Kelly had left Notre Dame. You had some things to say. LSU fans weren't thrilled about it on social media. So if you want to, I wanted to give you the floor. Not, take a victory lap if you want to, yay or nay, however you want to handle it. Can you just talk about right now the feeling that, that you're having with Marcus Freeman and the evolution of this team compared to where they were in the Brian Kelly era that caused so much drama before this?
Well, I mean, it's really hard to compare, honestly. If I could easily take some shots at Brian Kelly and talk about this or that, but, look, Brian Kelly's third year, he went 12-0 and had Notre Dame in the BCS championship game. Right. So, and it's a different era now. I mean, you've got NIL, you've got the portal. It's a completely different way of rebuilding your program. So, Coach Kelly's got to worry about his thing at LSU and Marcus Freeman's got to worry about his thing. But I think the biggest difference between the two programs, and you could talk about whatever the reasons are, is the influx of talent. Notre Dame has done a much better job recruiting the skilled talent that was often in rare form. I mean, you'd have a Will Fuller, you'd have a Jalen Smith, but you just didn't have a roster full of those top-level athletes. And that's the biggest difference between this Notre Dame team and some of those past Notre Dame teams, like the 2012 team. Big, physical, strong, Manti, Lewis Nix, Stephon Tuitt. This team is smaller. This team is faster. It's just a different program. And that's really what Marcus Freeman has tried to build and what Al Golden has tried to build running in a NFL-style defense. And you've got just different athletes. You've got guys like Jeremiah Love and Xavier Watts and Christian Gray and Leonard Moore. It's just a different type of athleticism that exists now, and it fits the system that they're trying to run. And so far it's worked, but now they got to go prove it on the big stage, because at Notre Dame you don't become a legend because of what you did in the regular season. You become a legend because you win championships, and that's the thing that Coach Freeman has to show that he can still accomplish.
Well, that's a perfect segue to my next question, because again, we've seen Notre Dame put themselves in a position in the postseason to win a championship, and it kind of falter for some of the reasons I think that you just listed when it comes to an all-encompassing talent, not just big and physical, but fast and smooth as well. When you look at this season, where there's really, and we can say we want about Oregon. Oregon's the best team in the country right now. They're undefeated. But that year where Notre Dame lost to Alabama in the national championship, Alabama was so much head and shoulders better than everybody else in college football. It's a little bit of a different flavor of ice cream this year. But does the narrative change for Notre Dame if they're able to win one of these games in the playoff? Or will it take Notre Dame winning a national championship to maybe get over that hump that some people were worried about with Brian Kelly? And like you said, just getting to the dance isn't good enough. You got to boogie when you walk through the door.
Well, there's really two types of this, right? There's the hump that, hey, you belong on the stage, which I still don't think people believe Notre Dame belongs on the stage. Beating Indiana, as good as I may believe Indiana is, I don't know what your guys' feeling is on it. It's still Indiana. Perception-wise, a win over them is not going to change any type of narrative. You have to beat one of the big boys, right? And Marcus Freeman has done a lot of great things at Notre Dame. He's won 11 games against top 25 opponents. He's got some big wins, but 0-2 against Ohio State, hasn't played Georgia, hasn't played Alabama, hasn't played Texas, hasn't beaten those teams that you have to beat if you want to get on that stage. And yeah, they have some wins, a win over Clemson 2 years ago, but Clemson, this isn't the 2018 version of what Notre Dame faced when they faced Clemson in 2018, or even the version of Clemson they faced in the ACC title game in 2020. So I think you need to beat one of those big boys. And then the ultimate goal, obviously, for Notre Dame is to win a championship. But until they can go toe-to-toe with a Georgia, Alabama, a Texas, and Ohio State and win that game, right? And they've been close. They lost to Ohio State in the last seconds last year. They led Ohio State late third quarter in 2022. Georgia beat them twice in 17 and 19 by combined 7 points. But at Notre Dame, you don't get rewarded for almost winning or by losing by a small amount. You get rewarded for winning, and until they win some of those games, they're going to be considered what they are now, which is a good football program, but not an elite football program.
Agreed, 100%.
Brian, I got a couple things here for you. Let's start right there with Notre Dame taking on Indiana. Yes, Notre Dame beating Indiana wouldn't be the same as if Notre Dame were to beat Alabama. At the same time, this is a really cool in-state matchup. I got to play against Notre Dame and Indiana, but I'm from South Georgia. I'm not from the state. Can you just talk about what it would mean for the Irish to beat an in-state rival like that, even if the brand isn't up there with, say, Alabama and Georgia and Clemson right now?
Well, I mean, if we're being honest, I don't know that beating Indiana is something that a lot of Notre Dame fans are going to view as some accomplishment. I'm not saying that's right. All right. I'm not dismissing Indiana. This is a heck of a football team. Curt Cignetti has done a phenomenal job turning around IUP. He did a good job winning at Elon and James Madison. But you guys know this. It's brands. I mean, when you were at Michigan, if Indiana was really good, would they have said, hey, I know we lost Ohio State, but we beat Indiana, right? It's always about that ultimate standard. And I don't know that Indiana would be viewed as any kind of special win other than, hey, you've got to get to that stage. And when you get there, you've got to win. And there's something that's standing between you and your ultimate goal. And so I think there's a level of respect within the Notre Dame program for what they see on tape. But I don't know if there's anything I'm going to be able to say to convince Notre Dame fans that this is a really good football team, which the film tells you is a really good football team.
Which I think is something that Curt Cignetti can take in as ammunition with him and say, look, we're going to be disrespected. We're going to be underdogs every step of the way. And we're still a really good football team. I think that's some ammunition he can use. You know, the other thing here is just holistically looking at the draw and at the bracket. I thought for the last several weeks, Bryan, that Notre Dame was in a really good spot to get that 5 seed because they weren't going to play in a conference championship game. Either Georgia had to lose and pick up that third loss or Penn State had to lose. At the end of the day, the committee said, look, Texas and Penn State both risked it an extra week in their conference championship games. We're going to slide them back, which moves Notre Dame to 7 rather than 5. But as you're sitting here looking at it, I know there's a bunch of really good teams in the playoff, but you have to feel really good about the draw right now. I mean, like you said, you're on the side now with Indiana and SMU and Boise State and a Georgia team whose quarterback may not play the rest of the season. That could be your second round game rather than on the side with Oregon and Texas and Tennessee and the Buckeyes. How are Notre Dame, how are you feeling about the draw right this second?
I think it's a good draw. I mean, look, as I said, I've been someone all along that said, hey, I don't want the 5 seed if it means you're going to have to play Arizona State and Boise in the first 2 rounds, because practically speaking, looking at it from a coaching standpoint, you're going to have that really good game against a talented USC team on November 30th. And then your next game against a team that's like that, talent-wise, is not going to be until, mid-January? You know, I don't know that that's necessarily the thing that best prepares you. And one thing we've learned this year, guys, is as we look at some of these teams that have gotten upset, a lot of times it's because the team hasn't really faced anyone that can challenge them for a while, like Texas to start the season. They kind of walk through that schedule. Michigan's not what people thought they were going to be. Some teams were down, and then all of a sudden they got to face Georgia, and Georgia had been tested already. They had played Kentucky. They had played Clemson up to that point in time, and the speed of the game was different. So I don't know if that draw would have been great for Notre Dame if you're actually talking about winning a championship, not doing the Lincoln Riley, let's schedule our way into the playoffs, but actually building your team to where you're having to compete. And I think playing an Indiana in round 1 does that, and playing Georgia in round 2 does that too. But again, guys, it's what I said before. Would Notre Dame get any national respect if they would have beat a 12-seed Arizona State or Clemson in the first round who had 3 losses and then beat Boise State or Arizona State and said, no, it'd be like, well, you haven't played anybody yet. This gives you a chance in the quarterfinals to see who you are, where you are as a program. Can you beat Georgia? And I'll be honest about this Georgia team. The second half with Gunnar Stockton forced Georgia to go back to what they should have been doing all year, which is get back to being that big physical football team that runs the football. And they bullied Texas in the second half of that game. Now, obviously you're going to have some film on Gunnar Stockton now, and I don't know how that's going to go, but this is one of those things where I think this could be a bit of a blessing for Georgia because it gets them back. So it's kind of like when Ohio State lost J.T. Barrett, and they had to go down to their third-string quarterback, Cardell Jones, because they had lost Braxton Miller in the preseason. It kind of forced Ohio State to say, okay, we're going to win with Ezekiel Elliott. We're going to get back to playing, bully ball a little bit, and I think that helped fuel them to a championship. I'm not saying it's going to happen at Georgia, but I do think this is going to help that team rally a little bit. But it's still Georgia, and Notre Dame's going to have to beat a really good Georgia team if they want to get to that point, and maybe get a Penn State in round 3. So I like the draw because I think if you're going to win a championship, one thing I've always loved about football, guys, you have to beat the best. There's no Cinderella story like David. You look at the two title runs that John Beilein made. The first one looked a whole lot different when you're playing Florida and Kansas and teams like that to get to the championship game, and then the second one you're beating nobody higher than a 6 seed. Right, until you got to the championship game, right? You want to.
Dante DiVincenzo had something to say about that one.
Yeah, he did a little bit, right? Jalen Brunson had a little something about that. But I've said this, guys. I made this joke, right? You guys remember back Ric Flair in the NWA back in the day? If you want to be the man, you got to beat the man. Well, if you're Notre Dame and you want to be the man, you need to be able to go through teams like Georgia and Ohio State and Texas if you want to get to that point. I like that draw.
Yeah, I like that.
I absolutely love that answer. I kind of want to get back to the game a little bit right here against Indiana, Brian. Who are some of your X factors, some of your guys in this game, and what role do you see them having to play for Notre Dame to come out with a win?
Well, look, if you're going to win a championship and you're going to beat a team as good as Indiana, your dudes have to be dudes, right? You need Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price to get going in the run game. You're going to need that to be a part of it. But at the same time, the things that maybe aren't your strength have to be have to be better maybe than they were in the regular season. So you need somebody in the pass game to step up. And the one guy that I think has kind of flown under the radar this year, because he's kind of come back from an early season injury and developing back from last year's knee injuries, Mitchell Evans.
Yeah.
Right. Preseason All-American, hasn't really done a whole lot. He's coming along here in November as he's now a year removed from his ACL surgery. You're going to need him to play like that preseason All-American that he was listed to be, that stretch where he was really dominant last year, because you're going to need somebody in the pass game, and whether it's him or Jaden Greathouse or Jordan Faison, to step up and say, I'm going to be at my best in the postseason. And we've seen guys do this in the past, right? I mean, what did Chris Olave do during the regular season, and then all of a sudden he steps up in the Big Ten title game and in the postseason, right? We remember when Clemson beat Alabama and they fell behind 14-0. It wasn't Mike Williams that sparked them. It was Deion Kane catching a little screen pass and making a big play to help spark them. You're going to need those complementary players, and I think on offense, a Mitchell Evans, maybe a Jordan Faison or Jaden Greathouse can be that guy.
Well, speaking about the passing game, let's talk about the guy who's thrown it, and Riley Leonard, a guy who's improved week in and week out. How do you think Riley Leonard will handle the pressure of being on the national stage in his first playoff game?
Well, I don't know if this particular stage is going to be a whole lot different for him, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know that the hype for this game is going to be any greater than what it was when they were heading down to College Station at the beginning of the season. I mean, when you're the quarterback at Notre Dame, that's kind of your daily life. That's just kind of where you are. It's not a whole lot different than going out in the Coliseum when you got the college football playoff berth on the line. They know if they don't beat at USC, there's a good chance they're not in the playoff. So I think that's something that it's one of several things that factored into his poor start to the season. Missing the entire spring was part of that too. But as he's kind of gotten more comfortable, and the greatest thing for Riley was understanding that this isn't Duke. I don't have to put this team on my shoulders every week. I can just get the ball where it needs to get to, do what I'm asked to do, and let those guys around me take over. And that's going to be the big thing for him. You make your reads, make the simple reads. If a 5-yard out is there, take the 5-yard out, right? Like, don't always go big, kind of that big play hunting, which sometimes gets him in a little bit of trouble, and just trust your teammates. That's going to be the big thing for him.
Hero ball can get you in a little trouble.
Yeah, it can, especially when you got great sidekicks around you, and that's what Notre Dame has. We talk about the evolution of passer. Blaine, brought up Riley Leonard. We've kind of seen him evolve throughout the year, and we can sit here and talk about the schedule. We can talk about Indiana's schedule or whatever. But when you do look at the numbers, Indiana's one of the top teams in the country in stopping the run. So at some point, Riley Leonard is going to have to throw Notre Dame 2 first downs when you get in the red zone, whether it's off some sort of RPO action or maybe even when a play breaks down, keeping his eyes down the field. And to me, that's the biggest difference between him and Sam Hartman. We're going to talk on our show we talked about it on Wednesday, Quinn Ewer's lack of ability to create when the play breaks down. How confident are you and Notre Dame fans in, listen, maybe the play doesn't go as it's drawn up, but Riley Leonard's creativity, his ability to improvise and do impromptu things kind of gives Notre Dame a little bit of a different flavor of ice cream this year and makes them more dangerous.
Well, especially in a year where there isn't that big-time quarterback. I mean, you think about the last 2 times Notre Dame made the college football playoff. It was Ian Book, right? Nice, solid college quarterback. And his first year, it was him versus Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray, and Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah.
His second year in the playoff, it was Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and Mac Jones, right? I mean, there's not that level of quarterback in the playoff this year. And I think those teams that have that sort of playmaker quarterback, that guy that can do things when the game breaks down, can really give you a lot of problems. And we saw Jackson Dart do that a little bit to Georgia. We've seen other quarterbacks in these games where things don't go your way, and you can make plays, you can improvise, whether it's, throwing on the run or running the football, which is Riley's been so effective. I mean, I think of that first scoring drive against USC, for example. Notre Dame's in the 2nd and 6, I think it was 2nd and 6, and they brought a corner fire. Riley Leonard sees it, makes the guy miss, and then runs for a first down. I mean, Sam Hartman is as good as he was and all the good things he brought to the table, he's probably getting sacked there. I mean, that's just kind of the reality. Quinn Ewers might be getting sacked there. As we saw, when he got sacked by, I think it was Chaz Chambliss hit him, might have been Jackson that hit him in the SEC title game, and he fumbles the football, right? I mean, you have that guy that can make people miss, can turn a 3rd and 10 into a first down. We saw it against A&M on the first drive. He avoids a sack, steps up in the pocket, scrambles for a first down, then gets a personal foul targeting hit, and moves the chains that gets him into field goal range. So having that kind of guy is great for an offensive coordinator because you don't have to call the perfect game, right? I mean, you have a guy that can go out there and do some different things and get you into the scoring zone.
Well, like I say, it's Sam Hartman maybe on a Head & Shoulders commercial, but I think Riley's Head & Shoulders better than Sam Hartman is. My last question for you, Bryan, is one, and I believe it was Aaron Taylor. If I'm misquoting who said it, then please correct me if I'm wrong. Kind of took a jab a little bit maybe at Notre Dame fans in hosting this game, saying they need to get loud. They don't get loud enough. What type of environment are you expecting at a mecca of college football? Touchdown Jesus there, overlooking the end zone. What type of atmosphere? Will this be the craziest atmosphere in the history of Notre Dame football because it's a playoff game? And maybe because they view little brother could be coming to town?
Well, I don't know that from what I was 10. So from what I've been told by people that have been going to these games a long time is there's never been a crazy environment than Miami in 1988. That place was insanely loud. It was just a really wild environment. But, Notre Dame can get loud. And we've seen it last year against Ohio State early. It got loud. This year early against Florida State, it got loud before people realized this game was kind of over by halftime. The problem is it just doesn't have that same type of, standing up, jumping around, sort of loud vibe. It's, people say it's a little bit the wine and cheese crowd. And I mean, there's something to that, but this crowd gets up for big games. And that's the one thing I'll give this crowd for it. No, they're not going to sound loud when they're playing Northern Illinois or Miami, Ohio, or even Louisville, programs that maybe the fan base doesn't view as the elites. But when big time programs come here, I mean, David, I don't know if, when you played at Notre Dame, but I remember the 14 Michigan game that Notre Dame won. That place was rocking. When Texas came to Notre Dame Stadium in 2015, early in that game, when Notre Dame jumped out on that place was wild. It was going crazy. And we saw that in 2017 at USC. So it can get loud. It just isn't a consistently loud stadium, which is why people say it's not a tough place to play. But I've always felt the toughest place to play are the places where the teams are the best. Yeah, and there were some years where Tuscaloosa wasn't that hard of a place to play. And
true.
And when Mike Shula was there, it's like, look, Kyle Field wasn't all that tough of a place to play at times under past coaches. But when you have a good coach and you have a good football team, it's a really tough place to play. And that's where Notre Dame Stadium is right now.
Yeah. Well, my freshman year was 2006 when Michigan went to Notre Dame. I think Mario Manningham had 3 catches for like 160 and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, pretty efficient.
He said that wasn't even my best day. I had better days in high school.
Yeah.
Only Mario Manningham could say. Bryan, I have one more question for you. Since the college football transfer portal is open before the season is even over, which is wild, and we can talk about that. But Notre Dame has gone to the transfer portal for 2 of the top quarterbacks the last 2 years with Sam Hartman and Riley Leonard. Riley Leonard is a senior. Obviously, Auburn flipped Deuce Knight from Notre Dame. What do you expect Notre Dame to do in the transfer portal for the 2025 season?
I don't expect them to do anything at quarterback unless they lose a couple guys to the portal and then they go looking for depth. The reality is this staff views that their next quarterback's on the roster. Whether that's CJ Carr or whether that's Kenny Minchie. I mean, that's the reality. The reason they went with Sam is because they didn't feel they had a quarterback that could be that guy. I know the staff was high on Tyler Buchner, but the problem is this is a kid that had missed, 3 of the last 4 years, 5 years with injuries or because of the COVID year, not being able to play as a senior in California, goes down in game 2 of the previous season. They needed more stability. And then when Sam was gone and Tyler transferred out, it was like, we're not going to turn the keys over to Steve Angeli's not ready and Kenny Minchie and CJ Carr aren't there. And there's a guy like Riley Leonard out there. But the plan was always 2025 is the year that we looking at it from their perspective, that we start looking at the quarterbacks that they've brought in. And Kenny Minchie will battle for it, guys. But everybody that I talk to around the program thinks that CJ Carr's got a chance to be special.
Yeah.
And it's kind of time to turn the reins over. And you'll have a great running backs next year. You have a much more experienced offensive line. So it'll be a much better situation for him to take over than maybe this year would, where in the first game of the year, 9 of Notre Dame's 11 starters on offense were guys with freshman or sophomore eligibility. Wow. And so it was a much, much younger team. Then you put a true freshman quarterback or a redshirt freshman quarterback in there, wasn't a great recipe for them. So I expect one of those 2 guys to be the guy next year. And I'll be a little surprised if it's not CJ Carr.
Yeah. Well, Bryan, we really appreciate you joining us, man. We got to do this more often. It's been too long since our first time. It's going to be a hell of a game. Obviously, in your guys' house. Everybody go check out Irish Breakdown. If I'm missing anything, Bryan, please tell me, plug whatever you need, my friend.
No, it's just it's Notre Dame fans have been waiting this for a while, and we thought they were going to be in the first ever college football playoff in 2014 when they were undefeated going into Florida State, and they didn't make it. But I just think it's better when the blue bloods like Notre Dame and Ohio State and Texas and Georgia are part of those first ever type situations, and so it has me excited to really watch the whole playoff, but especially from a Notre Dame standpoint.
Definitely, man. Well, thanks so much for joining us once again, and good luck, brother. It should be fun.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, Bryan Driskell.
Yeah.
Man, I tell you what, that was really good. I mean, that's about as good of insight as you're going to get from Notre Dame outside of one of the coaches or the players. So we appreciate him joining us. The phone lines are going to open here in 6 minutes, 1-855-236-3228. But David, let's move on to a little rapid fire before we get to the phone.
All right, boys. First up here in rapid fire, after 17 years away, Coach Rich Rodriguez is returning to West Virginia. He spent 7 seasons there from 2001 to 2007, included 3 straight 10-win seasons. Obviously, when he left West Virginia the first time he came to Michigan, I was a sophomore on that team. I played for Coach Rod for 2 years. Things got ugly in Michigan before he was fired after 3 years. At the same time, I lettered under him. I have no hard feelings towards Coach Rodriguez or anything like that. My question to you guys is, can he have the same sort of success in his second stint at West Virginia that he had the first time around?
I don't think he's going to have that level because 17 years is the perfect amount of time for Patrick White and Steve Slayton to have had a son. So if it's me, all right, how many boys we got? How old are they? If they're somewhere else, that's why the transfer portal was invented. All joking aside, good for him. This is a cool story.
Yeah.
Scott Frost going back to UCF is a cool story too, but the length of time that took for him to get back, you typically don't see it happen in this fashion. So, look, I hope it goes great. I believe it's his alma mater. I think it's where
he's from West Virginia.
He's from West Virginia.
Actually, he may have played there. I always remember him telling me he played DB against Dan Marino, and he lined up as far back at safety as he possibly could just to keep everything in front of him. I think that was at West Virginia. I'm not sure.
It's probably smart. It's probably where Man Free was invented. But no, when you look at him going back, it's going to bring that fun style of offense, the West Virginia that we remember growing up, right? That style, going fast, getting the ball out in space. Did a really good job at Jacksonville State. I'm interested to see the staff that he puts around him as well. Remember when he was at Jacksonville State, Zach Alley was his DC, who's now at Oklahoma with Venables. Not that I think Zach would leave, but would he go there to reunite with Rich Rodriguez? So I want to see the staff he puts around him. But no, good for him. I wonder, West Virginia fans in the chat, I wonder how they feel about it.
I hope they call in.
It's kind of like,
today.
It's, for an example, your mom divorced your dad, and then, she married somebody else, and they get divorced, and she reunites with your dad. It's a Hallmark movie. It's a Hallmark movie is what it is.
You see it that way?
I mean, yeah, I probably couldn't see Rich Rod in a Hallmark movie. I mean, that'd probably suck, to be honest. But I think it's a guy who has had success at this program. I mean, if there's ever a culture fit at West Virginia, you would believe it would be Rich Rod. I mean, the innovation offense are going to go. Trust me, those guys back in the day, I used to love watching West Virginia play back then.
I still love playing with West Virginia.
I mean, just they've had some of the sneakiest, quickest guys. Tavon Austin, Javad Best, Slayton, Pat White, shout out Daphne, Alabama. So I hope Rich Rod has success there. And if there's ever a culture fit, it's got to be this, right?
Kind of feels like Bobby Petrino when he went back to Louisville, right? When he went back to Louisville that time.
Yeah, it's just, again, it's not because there was it's not even like Petrino going back to Arkansas, because it's not like Rich Rod got fired. He took the Michigan job. And remember, he was offered the Alabama job and didn't take it. Who took the Alabama job? Nick Saban. So I don't know, this is just bringing up a lot of memories. I think Javad Best was Cal. I think. Oh,
that's right, Javad, the yellow.
I know who your thing is. I cannot get his name out, but it wasn't just Slayton, Pat White, Tavon Austin. There was one more that they had. I can't remember on the top of my head.
They beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, look, West Virginia, they were cooking under Richard. There's a reason he got offered that mission.
West Virginia fans, call in. Let's hear about it. All right, next one up, Dan Mullen. We've been talking a lot the last couple of weeks. Does Dan Mullen want to return to the game? Is it as a head coach? Is it as an OC? Sounds like he's going to take the UNLV job after Barry Odom signed with Purdue.
Yeah, well, we talked about the Michigan opening that obviously got filled by Chip Lindsey as the offensive coordinator. I'm happy for Dan. He wanted back in. I think this is a really good spot. If you're UNLV, I mean, you got to be ecstatic. I mean, UNLV has turned into a place that, is a destination job right now for a guy like Dan Mullen to take that when there were other opportunities that were available. I thought the North Carolina job, I thought the West Virginia job was interesting for Dan Mullen as well. So excited for him. My only thing is Matt Berry, my good friend, I'll still play golf with you. Because remember, they had like the par threes they would play when him and Dan Mullen would be in the booth on like the Thursday night game or something. But excited for him, excited for UNLV, to get his offensive mind back in the game, giving him another shot after the way it went down at Florida. And it wasn't just, Dan Mullen from that old Florida staff that got back. Todd Grantham is the defensive coordinator now at Oklahoma State, who was with Dan Mullen at Florida, kind of when it all fell apart. So excited for Dan. I tell you, man, it's such an interesting time in college football. And look, Dan Mullen's back, took a couple of years out, did the media route. We've seen that happen many a time. And I don't think UNLV is going anywhere when it comes to the being relevant in college football space. But all right, let's get back to the chat.
Noel Devine.
That was it. By the way, you talk about a high school highlight film. Woo, absolutely cooking. All right, let's get to the chat quickly, and then we're going to get off my lawn.
Let's go to a $10 donation from Truth L. What's up, man? He says, this is the best show in sports. I agree with you there, brother. He says, is there a 2025 portal quarterback the Irish should grab, or should they start the CJ Carr era? And also, Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Well, I think, Bryan Driskell expounded upon that. That's why, it's a great question by David, because they have gone to you wondered if this was just gonna be the flavor of ice cream for Notre Dame every year. They're gonna go get the best quarterback they possibly can out of the portal, build the team around them. You can ask if it's sustainable, you can ask if it's not. But he made it sound like their quarterback, unless, everybody starts jumping ship for some reason. And in the portal era, who knows, is already on the roster between Carr and Minchie, who he brought up. Which, look, I mean, to me, if you have to go to the board, I think that's the best way to go about it. I don't think you should come out and concretely say, we're going to go get a mercenary quarterback every year out of the portal, or come out and say, we're never going to go get a quarterback out of the portal. We're going to develop our own. It is about the circumstance and the context that you're in. If you don't have a guy on the roster that you can think can go win it, and there's a guy out there in the portal that can, go get that guy. That's what they did with Riley Leonard. But if you got a guy already, there's no a bird in the hand's better than one in the bush.
Well, also, they could have the best intentions right this second not to go to the portal, but what if in 2 weeks the quarterback Marcus Freeman likes most in the country says, you know what, I'm going to transfer, and I've always wanted to play for Notre Dame. Circumstances have changed.
Yeah, trust but verify. That's the way I look at it.
Let's go to Sir Los. He says, the last 4 national championships have ranked number 1 in efficiency. Guess who ranks number 1 this year, fellas?
Yeah, Notre Dame.
That is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
What efficiency?
Like, is it just overall?
Efficiency.
Like team
it's being efficient.
Just like
showing up to meetings on time. Showing up to lifts on time. Getting the right food in your
I don't believe you.
Yeah, we'll see.
Let's go to NSPR 8. Notre Dame has a deficit passing game. They have a great running attack and a super solid defense, but a higher-powered offense will definitely expose them. I do not believe in their back end that much.
Well, if the word exposed, I think we throw that around too much, because good teams lose. That doesn't mean they get exposed. Sometimes teams aren't as good as what we thought they were, and they get exposed, kind of like Florida State did in Game 1 against Georgia Tech. But to say that there may be an offense that can score enough to put enough pressure on Notre Dame to have to throw the ball, I don't think it exposes Notre Dame. I think it shows you how talented that other offense is. But we don't know if Notre Dame is going to be able to answer that bell. That's what we talked about during our preview when we looked at it. If Notre Dame gets down and they got to throw their way to a win, again, for the 93rd time, you look at Indiana's rush defense. What if it's a tight game and Indiana or Notre Dame and Riley Leonard have to throw the ball at the end of the game to win? Can they do it? You feel better right now than you did earlier in the year, but I still think the jury's out on that. But the capability's there, right?
Let's go to DC Irish 12-13. If Freeman doesn't win it this year, he will likely win one the next couple of years with a better quarterback.
It sounds like I love when Marcus Freeman's family gets in the chat. So that's exactly, if I'm Marcus Freeman, that's exactly what I want the fans to think. Hey, if we screw it up and don't win it this year, it's coming down the pipe. Best believe it. But we are in the middle of the week, whether it be Wednesday or whether it be Thursday. We all know what's coming down the pipe. And if you're on the lawn and you're upsetting David, who's really an 85-year-old trapped in a middle-aged man's body, I would say lower middle-aged. Let's put it there, David. I got a pretty good idea what this one's about. But David, who's getting off your lawn today?
Ohio lawmaker Josh Williams needs to get off my lawn. By now, most everyone has seen the midfield scuffle that took place when Michigan beat their arch rivals from Columbus for a 4th straight season. And that altercation has led a state representative to propose the OHIO Sportsmanship Act, a bill that would make flag planting, quote unquote there, a felony. My first thought was to feel bad for OSU fans because I know the vast majority of them do not share this mindset. But why should I feel bad? Y'all elected this guy. A felony. I'll tell you what should be a felony. Losing to a 500 football team at home when you're a 3-touchdown favorite after bragging to the entire world that you spent $20 million to assemble the greatest roster ever. I never thought I'd see anything softer than Texas fans trying to ban the horns down gesture, but the state of Ohio said, hold my beer, we can top it. Soft really doesn't even begin to describe this behavior. Broken is a better word. The Buckeyes are broken. So much so that Michigan may need to reconsider, and I can't believe I'm saying this, may need to reconsider Michigan State as its main rival. I see no other alternative. Also, let's straighten out some of this propaganda terminology. Just as sign stealing doesn't describe anything that was actually stolen, the phrase flag planting doesn't reflect a flag that's actually planted. All of these fields are turf, not grass. Nothing is being planted. It's not a tree. And even if it were, so what? Your mascot is literally a nut. Okay, all you're really saying is you don't want a team that beats you to celebrate. And the easiest way to stop that is get your team to fight as hard during the game as after. And as for you, Josh Williams, I'd like you to take a good look at that very painting hanging behind you in the Ohio Rotunda. That's a canvas of Commodore Perry waving an American flag while defeating the British who were calling him a traitor. I'll leave you with the same words he left the Brits. We have met the enemy, and they are ours. Now, as for whoever sent this Buckeye banner into the studio today, thank you. We were running low on toilet paper.
Oh. Hate.
You're going to get into trouble for that.
Yeah, Cone. No, that was gas.
Buckeye fans agree with me.
No, that's the whole point. This guy, to me, recall, revote. I know we're a good political company. We know about recalling people. All right? Y'all got to recall this man. He's making y'all look awful. What's his name? Josh Williams?
Yeah.
Bro, y'all need to primary this man. Primary him right now. I have not seen one Ohio State fan that's like, yeah, man, flag planting should be illegal, man. It's a felony, man.
It's kind of like the Texas horns down, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a certain faction. It's the loudest faction.
So lame. I cannot believe somebody told him. I don't think this is a good idea politically. Honestly, I really, really, really don't. I think you're just pissing everybody off. Like you have now upset everyone. Because, I mean, I see it all over social media. The Ohio State fans are like, we don't claim this. We don't claim this. And he's not a Michigan fan.
So I did the investigation on this because Barstool Tate was trying to come out and say, no, this guy's a Michigan fan, low key. This is a false flag operation. So I did the research. Someone interviewed him in the Rotunda, which is where that picture came from. Legitimately, he is a season ticket holder Buckeye fan. He's from Toledo. Half his family's Michigan, half his family's for the Buckeyes. And he said that we just cannot allow teams like Michigan to come in here and cause this stir up by taking
There's
their
nothing worse than looking double soft.
Yeah, it's double. Like, it's Charmin Ultra double soft.
It's like the double stuffed Oreos or whatever. It's just you can't get beat up at home when you're a 3-touchdown favorite and then come out afterwards and have a guy do this and say, hey, not only you can't do that, but hey, man, you don't celebrate after the game.
No.
You don't do it.
Like
Ohio State's just like it's
not good.
Therapy session.
It really is
right
not.
Now.
They're like. It just reminds me of like that troubled kid, like in high school that you thought maybe he was getting better, and then all of a sudden you figured out that he took a leak in all the water fountains in the school. Like it just.
I just wonder. Like I really like the Buckeyes' chances in this game against Tennessee. I haven't decided who I'm going to.
No, I don't. I don't. Not anymore.
I'm just saying, if Tennessee goes up there and wins now, you got to have a little something special, right? We saw Trae Young last night.
Bro,
Trae Young.
You want to talk about flags? It'll look like a NATO meeting if I was a Tennessee fan. There'd be so many flags up there. I mean, you look. They also said, unless I'm losing my mind, that Ryan Day is coming back next year. The AD came out and said, regardless of what happens, Ryan Day is coming back next year.
Not good when you have to make that.
Which I don't hate that. Like I don't hate that for him. But then he also said, and I believe, and tell me if I'm wrong, that they need a new approach to this game. They need to de-emphasize the game, is I think what he said. Like, stop caring about it so much because it's paralysis by analysis.
Buckeyes, I need y'all to call in today.
Yeah.
I want y'all to go off on this.
De-emphasize the game. How about you play good?
How about no?
Like,
how about let's don't
worry about planting a flag. Why don't y'all quit waving y'all?
Yeah, no,
I've never seen a white flag. If I've ever seen
that's a great way to put it. All right, David, you tell me when we're ready for phone calls.
All right, I'll tell you. Go to the chat.
Let's go ahead and get to the chat.
All right, let's go to In Berentine 5. It says, chill out, Cone. You're a year older than me, but I still remember a long losing streak from Little Detroit.
Oh, here
I
they
remember
go.
it too. I had not just remember it, I had to live through it, which is why it's so shocking now to watch them be so broken, fragile. Like I've never seen it. We got it. Michigan State's the best rival.
You got to hacksaw ridge this thing. You got to go up there and keep finding the bodies, man. You got to climb up that rope.
I want that guy who sent that comment. I want him to call in. I really want to tell him to call in. I want to know.
1-855-236.
My neighbor, brand new neighbor Brian, who's been my neighbor for 3 years now, but that's just what we call him. He texted me today. He's furious.
I bet he is.
He's like, go off on this.
Yeah, I love it.
Let's go to 0876. He says, speaking of our mascot is a nut, Cone, you can hold these.
I'd rather not. It is
God,
Christmas.
I love this.
It is Christmas.
I love that
time,
it's
though.
devolved into this.
Let's go to Sir Mixon. He says, I don't get the Ryan Day thing. If he doesn't have a deep run into the playoff or a natty appearance, this guy has to go.
Apparently not. The guy is making the decisions, man. And it's just, what I say is yes, winning all those other games matters. It's important, but that game matters the most, dog. That one matters the most.
De-emphasize it.
De-emphasize it. You're overemphasizing. You need to de-emphasize to recenter the emphasis, is the way I feel like.
Wow. Let's go to Gary Stevenson. He says, look, guys, no flag planting in Ohio. You'll get hit with all their purses.
Yeah. It's just tough, man. I feel bad for the Ohio State fans.
Let's go to $3 donation from Marky H. Appreciate it. He says, Ryan Day will be the death of me. I can't figure it out with this team. You spent $20 million to lose to a below mediocre team in Michigan, and I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee came up here and laid the wood.
Well, we don't need to be saying below mediocre and stuff like that.
You're going to have to work twice as hard.
Just say their record.
Below mediocre.
I'm the head coach.
Let's go to Ruben Minoz. He says, Candy ass is at Ohio State. If I was any team and I beat Ohio State, I'd plant my flag, just to rub it in.
Good save.
A lot going on there.
Wow. Yeah. Hey, show him that book, boy sent you. Yeah. Blaine can't read.
Oh, man. All right.
I'll get jumbled sooner or later.
All right. First caller of the day. Let's start with Timothy in Green Bay. Timothy, what's going on?
Good. How are you guys?
Good, Timothy. How are you?
Good. I'm not going to talk SEC today. I won't rub it in. I wanted to talk about this last week. I think you guys talked about it a week ago, too. But what is up with this epidemic, especially in the NFL, of every hit that looks anything dangerous, all these fans are crying? How can we fix this? This is getting annoying. Can't hit them high, illegal. Hit them low, fans think it's illegal. Any fan that never played football is just screaming. It's getting frustrating.
Yeah. Well, they've conditioned people to believe that any hard hit is illegal.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. We have groomed fans to think, oh, no. If you look at some of the hits Ray Lewis and Ed Reed used to have, you would think those people would be sent to Guantanamo, that they'd be getting waterboarded right now. It's just, we live in a different era. If you just started watching the sport over the last couple of years and you see some of these train wreck hits, you go back and look at some of those old school Miami hits or just any of the big hits back in the day, you'd be like, how was that man allowed to walk the streets freely? But I think that's what they wanted. I think they want you to have that reaction as opposed to just saying, listen, we need rules. You can't just be out there hitting people with chairs. It's in the WWE. Targeting does exist. Spearing does exist, but not at the rate that we see it. And sometimes, guess what? Just like Dan Jackson hit old boy from Texas coming across the middle.
I was just about to
clean
say that.
hit, clean as a whistle. But guess what? It looks ugly.
But they didn't call a penalty on that.
They didn't.
Because I was about to say the same thing. I was surprised.
But we're so, it's so sad now. The saddest thing is when you watch a defensive player have a good, clean hit and then get up and look around oh, God, they're going to kick me out of the game. As opposed to being able to get up, be fired up with your teammates, right? They've groomed people to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
I remember growing up, watching those hardest hitting compilations and getting so hyped. And nowadays, that's penalty.
I watched Junior Rose Green host a paranormal activity show after hitting Reggie Brown. He hit him so hard. I saw the ghost of Reggie Brown leave his body and then come back in.
What did he say in the interview when you asked him about that one time?
Oh, dude.
Do you remember that what I'm talking about?
He said something.
He said something funny. We'll have to go find it.
Yeah, we'll have to find it.
Well, better yet, we just get him back on.
I took his soul. He snatched his soul.
That's what he said.
Yeah. He said, I snatched his soul. goal, dog.
That's so terrifying.
Golly, and he did.
One last thing. Blaine, can I make a bet with you?
Yeah, man, sure. What is it? What's going on?
If the SEC goes 0-3, loses all the games right first round, I get some merch. But if they go 3-0, I'll put in like a $40 dono.
Okay. Deal that. Deal that. Take that deal.
Yeah, I'll take that deal.
Yeah,
I'll take that deal.
Thanks,
all right,
Timothy.
Tim, good luck.
All right, let's go to Emmett in South Bend, Indiana. Here they come. What's going on, Emmett?
Hey, guys. I heard you talking about the Notre Dame quarterbacks there. And listen, I'm an RA. I'm actually CJ Carr's RA here on campus.
Okay, talk to us.
I love the guy. He's great. But I'm curious why you guys think Steve Angeli will be skipped over. I mean, all the Notre Dame student section loves watching Steve Angeli play. We think he has a good arm, and I'm curious as to why you think the guys who are going to be sophomores next year will take over that position instead of him.
Well, look, I to be honest with you, I'm not 100% in there knowing this. I'm going off what Bryan Driskell, who I know knows. Look, whether it's Steve Angeli, whether it's peanut butter and jelly, they said whoever wins the quarterback job is going to be on the roster. As an RA, though, do you like the organization of, is there a lot of things that you see translating on the field?
I don't know. Well, I don't see CJ Carr around the dorm a whole lot, and I haven't seen him on the field a whole lot, so there's that.
So on that point, Emmett, and I think I can say this now, but and I don't know if you have inside information on this or not, but I had heard in the middle of the season that maybe CJ Carr was looking to transfer out of Notre Dame. I think, and obviously I played for his grandfather, Coach Lloyd Carr at Michigan, so it was already weird when a quarterback from Saline went down to play at one of Michigan's rivals. But I didn't know if the circumstance maybe changed after Michigan signed Bryce Underwood, and I don't. And then I hear Bryan Driskell on here saying Notre Dame loves him and he might be the starter next year. Do you get any sense that he wants to transfer out of Notre Dame?
Oh, I get absolutely no sense from that. From what I've heard from CJ Carr, from talking to him, from talking to his friends, from talking to the football chaplain, he seems like he's going to stay.
Okay. The chaplain would know.
He loves Notre Dame. So.
Okay.
I wonder if
because you'd have to confess that, right?
If they ever go into confession, they're like, Lord, it's been 2 weeks since my last confession. I didn't see the Cat Fire Blitz at practices. It's like, son, that's 2 Hail Marys. Figure it out.
They offered me $400,000, Lord.
Yeah.
NIL's a hell of a
Emmett, thanks for calling, buddy.
Thanks,
Good luck
Emmett.
next weekend, brother.
Hey, call in before the game, all right? Let's go to Daniel in Orlando. Daniel, what's going on?
Ohio?
Orlando, Ohio,
hey guys,
I believe.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, what's up, Daniel?
This is Orlando, Florida, the second home of most Notre Dame fans.
Gotcha. Y'all do love Disney World.
No doubt. Hey, I'm a big fan of the show. I keep doing
man.
what you guys are doing. You're great to listen to. Hey, I just want to talk about injuries as they pertain to this playoff. We're getting some extra games tacked on the end of the year. Notre Dame, I'm a big Notre Dame fan, but we've been riddled with injuries this year, and I'm thinking that might rear its head. If not against Indiana, you'd have to think it's going to come up against a team like Georgia. What do you guys think about injuries, and what kind of impact is that going to have as we start getting into this playoff bracket?
Well, it's going to be huge. We see this in the NFL too, with the extended playoff. It's a battle of attrition, not only during the regular season, but in the offseason. One thing I've heard some coaches that I've talked to in circles say is that, well, on the positive side of that, if a guy goes down early in the year, since we play so much later now, there's some chances that a guy could come back, maybe even if it's just for the postseason. But as far as who is the most injured or who has the most quote unquote, devastating injuries at certain positions. Just look at what happened in the SEC championship with Carson Beck. We can sit out here and pretend that, I see a bunch of people in the Georgia fan base just pretending like Gunnar Stockton is actually really going to be him, and he might, but you don't know, right? You know pretty much what you have with Carson Beck and that experience. So, again, I think everybody, look, you stop being 100% once you're being born, but every team is not created equal when it comes to the injury front, especially on the line of scrimmage. And to me, that is what's going to separate some of these teams late. Not if you have depth, it's where you have depth. And the line of scrimmage is where you need to have the most depth, outside of obviously quarterback and kicker, if we're telling the truth.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I wonder if, Notre Dame doesn't have the depth to hold anybody out or pull anybody and hold them for a game against Georgia. I think, the A team's going to be playing against Indiana and they're going to be playing the whole game. But I wonder if teams like specifically Texas, they've got a weapon in Arch Manning. Do you think maybe we might see them hold off on putting like more of Arch Manning in until they get maybe to a little bit more complicated or a challenging game than Clemson? I'm not saying they're going to be Clemson. I don't know how that's going to go, but do you think we'll see any scheming specifically to avoid injuries here in this first round?
Well, I think it depends on the flow of the game. If Texas comes out, and I don't think it's just about keeping Arch or somebody else out because of injury. You also don't want to show some things if you don't have to, schematically, right? So if Texas comes out and they score on their first 3 drives and it's 21-0, and they're just, it's peanut butter and jelly up and down the field, vanilla ice cream up and down the field with a little bit of sprinkles every now and then, why would you show something that you've been holding for a tight moment, right? Like that Kenny Dillingham play on 4th and 1 against Iowa State where they ran that play action and took that shot. He may have been sitting on that thing for a couple weeks but didn't have to use it because the game didn't dictate it. So I don't think it's as much about injury as it is holding back some schematical things if you feel like you're doing enough with what you have out there. But if I'm Texas, the way you played on offense against Georgia, even early, I'm getting whatever I got. If it's Bozo the Clown, it's Bozo the Clown. If it's, like I said, if it's Uncle Tony's bologna medicine shop, it's going to be that. Whatever it takes, you got to give it to them.
How about this for a chess move? What if, let's say, Texas finds themselves up 17-0, and they do have some sort of Arch package that they really like that they want to utilize in a key moment,
just
goal
run
line. What if Sark goes out, sends him out there just to set that up?
Yeah.
To set up something, run something different, to set up what he really likes that he does want to use in a crunch.
Well, and to that point, if you really want to get into it, maybe he doesn't trust Arch throwing it that much, but if they're up 20 points, he wants to get in there and have a play where Arch throws it so the defense the next week says, oh, God, guys, it's not just a run package. They've got to throw in there, so now you're stealing practice time.
Appreciate it, Daniel.
Great call, man.
Hey, thank you, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks, man. All right, let's go to Peter in California. What's up, Peter?
What's up, Jake, Blaine, and David? Happy Thursday. How are you guys doing?
What's
Great,
up, man?
I'm doing great. First, congratulations to Bill Belichick for being named North Carolina's new football coach. He just shook up the college football world. I think North Carolina's football stock just went up, although it will be a little bit of a challenge to turn things around. But if he's got the right people, I think he can do it. He built a dynasty with the Patriots. I think he can do the same. Second, my picks for the first-round games for the college football playoff. Money line for Penn State, Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Clemson winning. I also believe Georgia will win the Natty this year.
You said Clemson?
Predicting the Army will win this weekend. Yes, I believe Clemson is going to win.
Okay, I was just
Georgia
making sure.
Will beat Clemson in the Natty.
Georgia will beat Clemson in the Natty.
Look at that.
Peter, you nailed this one down, buddy. I'm flying you first class to Vegas, and we're gonna. Does
Clemson keep it closer than they did in Week 1?
Yeah.
Yeah, Georgia is going to beat Clemson. That's my prediction. I would definitely accept that offer. And one last thing. On a personal note, I'm writing my own songs, including some patriotic songs, and I hope to release them in the future. And David, I'd like to say I really appreciate your music. I'd like to know if I could use Southward Bound and American Made as theme music for my upcoming sports podcast. I think they're appropriate songs for college and pro football weekend.
Absolutely. It's a great honor. New song tomorrow, Thompson Station Train. Actually, tonight at midnight. You can get it tonight. Yeah.
Sweet. Thanks for sharing. I can't wait to check it out.
Yeah, I'm coming out with a new song. It says, I meant to say flag.
Yeah. Boy, that was an all-timer there.
Appreciate it, man. All right, let's go to Nick in Toledo, Ohio. Maybe now we're really getting somewhere. Come on in here, Nick. Talk to me.
How's it going, fellas?
What's up,
Pretty good so far.
All right, yeah, so I'm out of Toledo. That was me and Brenny5 in the chat room there. I was just calling in to talk to you about the get off my lawn thing.
How you feel about it?
So I'm not against anybody planting flags. I mean, it happens. You know what I'm saying? This is college. This is a sport where the heart is at. It's not the pros. That's what we're here for, right?
Mm-hmm.
That being said,
I
also don't think you should be upset if Sawyer comes across with the right hook. I mean, you get what you give kind of thing.
Oh, if one of the players?
Yeah, I agree with
that.
that.
I said that.
Yeah.
I said that. When I saw Jack Sawyer sitting there crying, being held back, and they're trying to get a shot of Ryan Day, but Jack Sawyer's in there too, and he's crying his eyes out saying, I'm not going to let them plant their flag on my field. I feel that. That's the guy I want playing edge for me. I don't want a different kind of guy, but also don't then turn around and try and sign legislation like it's Michigan's fault. No, like Michigan won the game. They're celebrating. the Buckeyes started that confrontation, which I don't really mind, like I said, but
sometimes it goes down like that.
And I agree. But it's like one of those cousins that you just don't talk to at the party. Like, if he's trying to go through with that legislation, like, no Buckeyes up where I live are pro.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Nobody wants to see any of that. But we're also not going to go plant flags either. I mean, I remember a couple of years, you know what I'm saying, where Michigan had under 100 total yards. I think it was Beanie Wells' senior year. Nobody planted flags then, and there was a lot of mouth jaw-jacking and things like that. So, you know what I'm saying? It's a rivalry. It is what it is. I'm not against it. But
Well, what's your thoughts on when David said that Michigan State might now be a bigger rivalry than Ohio State because y'all are soft and broken?
I think Michigan State's trash, and they're going to be trash for a long time.
Well, that we could agree on.
Hey, how do you feel, Nick?
What do you think about the line of ask him what you're going to ask?
Well, I was going to say, how do you feel about this Tennessee game, man?
So this is no disrespect to the Tennessee fans.
But you're about to disrespect them.
No, they may take it the wrong way, but it's not. I think we got the Penn State of the SEC. I'm not happy about
they're going to get upset about that one.
The Penn State of the SEC?
Wow.
Look, so they can't win the big game.
Nick, I mean, till they do it. I'm not saying you're wrong, but what I'm saying is they 100% are going to take that as disrespect. And you know what? Penn State fans are going to take it as even more disrespect. Because it's one thing to be like, golly.
They can be there together. Right?
I know. It's kind of like one thing to be like, man, Jessica's gotten huge. It's another thing to be like, man, Jessica looks like Patricia now.
Yeah, I mean, what's the worst thing they can do? Just plant a flag in the middle of your field?
That was the point I was going to ask you, Nick. Like, what did you think when I was saying this term flag planting? It's not like they broke into the stadium at midnight and planted a tree that stays there forever. It's turf. They're going to midfield to celebrate with a flag.
It's an act.
Yeah, I think I would have been more disgusted if they would have came in, after the end of the game when everybody's singing Carmen, Ohio, and like disrupted that or did something along those lines. I don't care what they do after the game. They won. They should be happy about that.
Okay.
They have those rights.
So you're a rational person from Toledo.
Nick, thank you for being a rational.
Who would have thought this phone call would have been end up that's actually trashing Tennessee fans?
Yeah, it's amazing.
I know. And Michigan State. And Michigan State.
Tennessee's catching more strays than a humane society right now.
To your question about the line, the 7.5, we've all seen what's happened with Ohio State's lines this year. You bet the under. You always bet the under.
Yep.
I think, honestly, they're going to come out swinging.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what anybody says about Ryan Day's job.
Yeah.
If you can't go to the grocery store with your face not hidden under a hat and glasses, you don't want to be where you're at.
Embarrassment is a huge motivation.
They came out swinging against Georgia a couple of years ago after losing that game at home.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't win it, but still, that was a good Georgia team.
Yeah.
Came out swinging and just ended up getting
it was like,
wide
I almost
left.
got divorced because of that game.
It was wide left.
Thanks,
Yeah.
At the stroke of New Year's, too.
Midnight Miracle or whatever. Appreciate it, Nick.
All right,
Thanks,
Nick.
man.
Thanks, buddy. Great call.
Oh, what a great call. All right, let's go to Asher in College Station. What's up, Asher?
Asher, is this Asher Roth?
What was that?
Oh, I didn't know if this was Asher Roth or not. Does he even make music anymore?
This is, I've commented on the live stream a couple times.
Gotcha.
The Aggie JAC.
Okay, what up?
Hey, so I was calling to talk to you guys about the playoff. Obviously, everybody's up in arms about the format. It's kind of all over the place. I've seen people suggesting different things. Literally right before I called in, I even saw an idea for a 16 team where it's like you've got 4-team tournaments for each of the Power Four, and then the winner of the Power Four conferences go to a 4-team playoff. And I thought that was intriguing, but then I was also looking at what we have this year for the bracket. And I'm seeing in the first round, like the tightest line is Notre Dame, Indiana at Notre Dame -7.5. And then Ohio State, Tennessee is also Ohio State -7.5. So it's like, yeah, maybe we have some good teams here, but also they're not projected to be particularly close games. So I guess the question is, like, how do we even go about finding, if it's going to be 12 teams, who the 12 best teams are? And then, like, seeding-wise, obviously there's the top four, and nobody really likes that the conference champions get all the bids and buys and everything like that. But, I mean, I don't want to see a 10, 15, 20-point blowout in the first round and then that same thing happen in the second round. And I don't think anybody else wants to see that either.
Yeah.
So how do we get the best teams in, I guess, is the question.
Well, first off, let's let this one play out first. We may get great games every single game. We don't know yet. But I agree with you on the structure of how and where we put the 12 is messed up, right? And the lack of consistency and the contradictions each week by the playoff reveal lends credence to the critiques that have been going. Here's how I think we fix it, okay? And it's not a complicated ordeal. I think there's two ways. One, we take the top 12 teams in the country that are determined by 4 factors, mostly objective and a little bit of subjective. Give me 25% strength of schedule. Give me 25% win-loss record. Give me 25% scoring margin, which you can cap at a certain point if you want. And then we need a committee of ball knowers that can have no professional current affiliation with any university to give us the subjective part. Or if y'all want to meet in the middle and you don't want any of the subjective part, let's just use the BCS formula. Let's just go back to the BCS formula, get our top 12, but here's the caveat. The top 4 teams that get a bye, you can have 2 from the same conference, right? If Ohio State and Oregon finish in the top 4, they should both get a bye. We shouldn't just let conference championships be in the top 4. But to keep the importance of the conference championship, the top 4 conferences, the winner of the conference championship game, gets an automatic bid into the playoff, and your seed will be determined by where you're at after you win that. But now, that doesn't mean you're necessarily creating 4 automatic bids, because a team that gets a bye could be a team that wins a conference championship. So if Oregon, who won the Big Ten, finishes as the number 1 team, they were going to be in there anyway, and they eat up one of the automatic bids because they won the conference championship. That's how I think we should.
Okay, so the thing you shared the other day that I said I wanted to print out just so I could tear it.
Yeah, I didn't know.
That one said 25% strength of record, not
to me, that's win-loss.
That's not win-loss. That's not
the way that I
whoever wrote that.
Yeah.
You didn't write that.
No. I wrote it.
Whoever
to me,
did
strength of record means you're 11-1.
No, that's not what they mean.
Well, I'm talking about that's what I mean.
So that's a good distinction. Yeah. So you have improved whatever they wrote a little bit, which I'm proud of you. Also, before we let you go, Asher, on those lines, too, keep in mind the home field advantage is reflected in those lines. I don't think OSU Tennessee would be 7.5 if they were meeting at a neutral site, which is where you would typically get one of these type of playoff
that's
games,
a great point.
Right?
Can I make one more caveat, too? It is ridiculous. Talking about the way we do strength of record is wrong. It should be your overall win-loss record. I should change that to just say win-loss record. But to me, that's what strength of record is.
Can I on that point real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think win-loss record, I don't think you can look at it just as an objective standard, because I'm looking at teams like Memphis and even Boise and Army that are sitting at 10-plus wins. And, I mean, obviously I'm calling from College Station. I'm an
Well, that's why you have strength of schedule.
But can it be one thing, though?
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying.
Your record that you play be one of the things?
It is an objective thing because SMU won 11 games objectively.
And that's what I was about to talk about. Like, I mean, do we really, in all honesty, and the playoff committee doesn't, but do we really think that SMU is a better, more deserving team to be in the playoffs than Alabama just because they won 2 more games? Like, I don't see that case.
Well, you said better and more deserving.
Yeah.
I would pick one of them.
Yeah,
you said better and more deserving, which, again, the committee's job is just the 12 best teams. Take whatever you best to mean. And so, yeah, you could take that.
Well, if that's the case, then why do we even play the regular season? Like, what is the point of SMU? Because you could, if they went 11-1 and you say that, if they went 12-0, you'd have to say the same thing. So why do we even play the season? Why don't we just let the sports books give us the 12 best teams before the season and just put them in the playoff? That's what I'm saying. Like, it has to matter some, but it can't matter all.
I agree with you. I don't think it's all about what do the sports books think. I mean, I think Alabama definitely looks bad, like embarrassingly bad. And Alabama's my second favorite team. I grew up half an Alabama team or a fan. They looked exceptionally bad against Oklahoma and against Vanderbilt. And I think that that's really embarrassing. But then they also looked incredibly good against Georgia, who just beat Texas in the SEC championship, got a 2 seed. So it's like, I mean, Alabama has embarrassing losses. They also have some really dominant wins. And SMU, they don't have those embarrassing losses. They lost to a couple pretty good football teams, but they also didn't beat anybody. So it's like I look at that and I see a 9-3 and an 11-2. Everybody wants to just hit on that and say, "Oh, Bama, you shouldn't have lost 3 games." But I want to look at the games that they won, and that's where I think like that has to, in my opinion, I think that should matter just as much, if not maybe even more than strength of record. I mean, if it were up to me, Alabama would be in and SMU would be out. And I was saying before the ACC championship that SMU should be in, and I wanted them to win.
Well, let me ask you this: in that case, if Alabama would have lost to LSU barely in double overtime and they finish 8-4, do you think they still should be in front of SMU?
If they lost to LSU?
Yeah. Bama was 8-4 and lost to LSU. Why?
I would say no, but that's
why?
Also because of where they have LSU right now. Like, LSU's not even.
Okay, but why would you not let them in over SMU?
Why would I keep Alabama out over SMU?
If Bama lost to LSU, why would you keep Bama out, who is 8-4, but you still think they're better than SMU? Why would you keep them out?
Yeah, I mean, I think
because win-loss record matters. Because it matters. Win-loss record matters.
It does, and it does, and it should. But I think if you have an Alabama team that's 8-4 compared to an Alabama team that's 9-3, I think there's a big difference in terms of saying which one's better just between those two. Like, I don't know that you can make an argument.
I can make that argument that 11-1 is way better than 9-3.
Appreciate it, Asher.
Hell, put Army in the playoffs.
Yeah,
appreciate it, man. All right, let's go to Jake in Auburn, Maine. Did y'all know there was an Auburn in Maine?
There's a
Apparently there is, and Jake's there. Jake, what's up?
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's up, dude?
Yeah, long-time listener, first-time caller.
Appreciate it, man.
Always been more of an NFL guy, but you guys got me back into college football, so I appreciate that.
Of course.
So, hear me out here. Hear me out. This is a little bit crazy, but
good.
I think you go ahead and you rip the Band-Aid all the way off. All the way off. Think about it this way. There's the conference championship loser that makes it to the national title game will play 17 games. So hear me out here. 64-team college football playoff.
Oh, I love it.
Come on.
Look, I think we should just.
How many regular season
I just
games
think the closer we get to the end of the season, we should just keep actually changing the number of the playoffs and not actually play it ever.
Ever
actually play it.
That's what's happening this year.
Just keep changing it.
You didn't know? That's what's happening this year.
No.
Jake, how many regular season games do you play then?
Look, you play 10 regular season games. You have the one conference championship game. Then you get 6 games to get to the national championship game. That's 17 right there. And everybody complains about scheduling and like, oh, we don't want to schedule these really hard matchups because it might ruin our chances of making the playoffs. Well, who cares? Schedule who you want. There's going to be 64 teams that get in. If you're good enough, you'll be in there.
But Jake, here's the thing: that 65th team that doesn't get in is going to be pissed. Like, you're still going to have people that, you know what? Look at the NCAA basketball. Look what Charlie.
Have you met Wake Forest fans?
Hey,
they're so mad at being.
UMass cares. All right. Purdue cares. Purdue got hosted this year.
If you had put Wake Forest in there instead of at 65, they'd have won the whole thing.
I've never met. Maybe he's just a big Maine fan and he's trying to get the Black Bears in the playoffs. And if that's the case, I love it.
Even 64 teams that the Black Bears are never getting into. We just got smoked by Oklahoma months ago.
I tell you what. I've never met anybody from Maine, but this is a good start. I like this guy.
Appreciate it, Jay.
Thanks,
man.
We have people here.
Y'all do. All 9 of y'all.
People in a moose, I promise.
Yeah, it's 9.
Big ups to Maine.
Big ups to Maine. Didn't think I'd be saying that.
Great call, dude.
Thanks, man. Thanks for everybody for calling.
Great calls today. Jake from Maine, from State Farm, from everywhere. I'll see you at the convention. It's a long way for you to go. I heard it's in San Francisco this year. I tried to get out of it.
I bet it is.
Can't. I'm a guest speaker, Jake Ford. Anyways, tonight, the bets, football returns. Last week, sat here on a Thursday. I looked straight at Heath. I said, Heath, David Montgomery, son. First touchdown, plus 550. We're getting it back. Didn't keep the faith that time, but he did after, and you saw what happened. Last night, 1-1. Shout out to North Alabama and East Carolina for the over. Fresno State, I have you minus or plus 27.5. You lose by 28. Caleb Nail, I put that on you, dog. And we got y'all's best linebacker off the team. Shout out Phoenix. Anyways, tonight, Guarindo, first touchdown scorer for the 49ers. God, I want to do Kyron Williams so bad. But again, I got to go with my dadgummit. What's wrong with you, dog? Anyways, Guarindo, first touchdown scorer, plus 475. And then San Francisco money line, minus 142.
All right, boys. Rams. Look, I picked the Rams to win the NFC West. They're a game back of Seattle. I'm going to go with the Rams plus 3, minus 122. And then give me the over in their game against the 49ers. That's 48.5 at minus 112 odds.
Oh, am I?
Yeah, are you reading your spelling book?
It's a good read. Just give me the 1-1 yesterday, San Diego State, whatever. I don't even care anymore. I'm going with the over as well. A lot of points in this game. Give me Rams 49ers over at 48.5. And Brock Purdy, Rams one of the worst team when it comes to giving up passing yards. The quarterback, Brock Purdy, averaged 9.5 yards per pass. So give me the over at 258.5. That's going off at -110.
Ace, what do we got? Puka Nakua. Anytime touchdown at +120. And then Stanford. Think that should probably say Stafford. I'm going to guess it says Stafford over 244.5
points in a basket.
passing yards, -115. If somehow Stanford's basketball team does get over 244.5, there's no way that's -115. But anyway, Matthew Stafford on the over passing yards. Hopefully both quarterbacks hit. All right, let's get to the chat.
All right, let's get these donations, guys. If you donated, really appreciate it on this side. Let's go to a $20 donation from Jacob Asil. What's up? He says, how about them Sun Devils?
Yeah.
Plus 6,000 odds, boys. I already add Rob Vegas by betting us to win the Big 12. I'm about to become rich off them winning the Natty. Dilly is legit, and so is this program. Dilly, Dilly, go Devils.
Dilly, Dilly. Hey, look, I don't hate it. You put a 10-piece on it, you can win 600. How about that?
Let's go to a $5 donation from CD Nighthawk. I need to thank David for recommending I go to the Rams versus Bills game at the beginning of the season. Great stadium.
Yeah, what a
great seats.
Shootout.
Great game.
Yeah.
Hey, what a great call.
Didn't know at the time Josh Allen would have 54 fantasy points, but I made the playoffs.
And you're playing the same guy.
Same guy this week.
No way he does.
Let's run it back. I can't even say his name on here because we'd get banned.
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
it's a good name, though.
It's been one of those days. $2 donation from Mama Locke. She says, Belichick's dad coached at UNC and Navy.
Didn't know
Googled
that.
it.
I did
not know that. I did not know that.
Let's go to $5 donation from Boots Up. He says, fellas, who do we like in the Army-Navy game?
Army.
I mean, it's Army, right? I just always go back and forth. Do I bet the under in this game?
Yeah.
Why would I not bet the under?
It's always the question, but they're going to put it at like 36.5.
I know. It's like Iowa and Iowa State, which I always take the under. I don't care. I'll take the under in the Cyhawk game any year.
Let's go to a $5 donation from Andrew P. He says, Blaine, you're my favorite flag. This has been...
Oh, you're never living.
How's the chat doing,
That will
bud?
live forever.
All right, let's get to the last donation of the day, a $5 donation from Tee Me Up. He says, fellas, I picked Texas to win the national championship preseason. Do you think I should take that away? I don't think Quinn Ewers is good enough. The defense can play, but Quinn will hold them back.
How much? I need to know how much you bet. I need to know how much to win. I need to know how much the cash out is. I've got to know the numbers before I can give you it.
One more $5 donation from Will. Appreciate it, Will. The nuts have been cracked. Little brother, Ohio, go blue. Blaine, always remember to pronounce the L in flag to avoid scrutiny.
Get him.
Thanks, guys.
It wasn't a silent
Thanks,
L.
guys. Yeah, must be really easy
Who'd have
sitting
thought?
over there.
Who'd have thought the L wasn't silent?
I have to read 1,000 things a day, but hey, it's my fault, right?
God, I'm just glad you're not the PA announcer for Duke's basketball team.
I mean, we still haven't got a flag on YouTube, so I mean, we're due, if anything. Let's get to the poll.
Cooper.
Is Notre Dame good enough to win a national championship?
They said, well, I would say they said no, but Driskell in here brought a lot of Notre Dame fans. I'll say yes, 55%.
I'm going to say yes, 56%.
What is it?
Yes, 51%.
Golly, man.
Tight.
No,
Tight.
49.
Ugh. All right. Great show. Check out Good Ranchers and Irish Breakdown with Bryan Driskell. Use that code booster, goodranchers.com. Got a great show for you on Flaming Dragon Friday tomorrow, and I swear that under will hit if it is the last thing I do. And just like the chances, and me not being excited and anxious about watching this college football playoff, and Blaine struggling to pronounce L's in the middle of words, we're going. You blew it for all of us. Gone.
How's your bucket step?
Yeah. At least I can read.